Hey there friends, it's that time of year again, and it's time to get an update on the new, the biggest, and most anticipated strategy games of 2022. Last time we did this was in December, which is a good 6 months ago, and much has happened in the genre since then. In this video, we will go through the latest games that have released in 2022, and some which have or will receive major updates this year. Then we will talk about games that are either scheduled for or anticipated for release in 2022, and then finish with a few honorable mentions that have yet to receive a release date, but which may or may not release this year. And if that sounds good to you, I really hope you'll consider liking this video and subbing to the channel. First up is Total War Warhammer 3. Warhammer 3 released back in February to mixed reception, but offered a focus on Warhammer's eastern territories. It includes all new factions, legendary lords, and abilities, but will definitely feel familiar to people who have played the other Warhammer games. The reason why I'm mentioning Warhammer 3 though, is that the Immortal Empires update releases this fall. This will bring an all-new massive campaign map with every previous faction in the prior Warhammer games for the ultimate Warhammer campaign. Many Warhammer players are sure to be hyped for this, even though they'll just be playing Empire for the millionth time. I know I'm one of those. Second is Old World, which released on Steam just a month ago. Old World is a 4X strategy game taking place in the ancient era. It's kind of a mixed experience of Crusader Kings and Civilization, as it puts importance on characters, while also having to deal with war, technologies, and expansion on a hexagon-shaped map. Old World also received a large expansion this year, Heroes of the Aegean, which focuses on Greece and the Hellenistic eras. If you enjoyed CK3 or Civilization then, Old World just might be for you. Speaking of Crusader Kings, CK3 actually released on consoles this year, in a package which I personally really enjoyed. But more happened to CK3, namely the Fate of Iberia expansion, which brings a whole new depth to the factions, cultures, and religions present in Iberia. Here you'll find tons of new events and a massive new struggle system, which makes Iberia the most interesting place to be in the world. If you want to know more, check out my review of Fate of Iberia right here. And speaking of knowing more, Starship Troopers is a new RTS which lets you discover this universe on your own, namely the horrible, ruthless, and parodic. It's a universe where soldiers fight insects, and if you've seen the movie, well, you probably have some idea of what's going on here. Starship Troopers is out now on Steam. Then we have Songs of Conquest, a turn-based strategy game that combines the RPG elements with strategy and kingdom management. It's a gorgeous game at that, offering a beautiful art style in a Heroes of Might and Magic style campaign. Songs of Conquest is also out now on Steam. Next up is Dune Spice Wars, another game taking place in an established universe. Dune is an RTS with a new twist, namely that environments must be taken into consideration in terms of survivability and resource management. Dune gives you control of 4 major factions, all with their own unique abilities and playstyles. It is an early access game and will improve with time as well, and it can all be found on Steam. And now for Frozenheim, an RTS game with something of a Viking twist. Frozenheim is all about establishing your village and conquering the other factions on the map, chopping down trees, gathering resources, and building your army. It's visually pleasing and definitely brings that Viking feel, so if the contest piques your interest, make sure to check it out on Steam right now. Diplomacy is not an option, it's a strategy game mixed with tower defense in that you're not attacking as much as you are defending. What the game does really well is that sense of building up your defenses and withstanding the worst of what the enemy can toss against you. And it does it all with a wonderful art style and a really impressive number of enemy units. The game is out now on Steam, so if you feel like defending, then you know what to do. And then we have Warlordbritannia, a game quite unlike the others. Being more of an action strategy game, Warlordbritannia lets you build a Roman legion and attempt to conquer Britain. It's a hardcore experience and might have you try several times before you succeed, but that just makes the victory all the more sweet. Warlord allows you not only to build a grand Roman army, but to personally lead it in the field, upgrade units with ranks and armor, and to partake in fights, even manage the conquering of villages. If this sounds like something for you, Steam is where to find it. And now for our upcoming games. The Settlers is the latest iteration in the series of the same name, but aims to take it into the modern age. It is a city builder RTS that's also rather cutesy, and you will be ordering units around, managing resources, and expanding your cities, often by fighting. It originally aimed for a March release of this year, but due to massive backlash after the closed beta test, the game was delayed. And even though there's no set release date just yet, we can hope for a 2022 release, and a much better game than what the beta provided. Then we have Company of Heroes 3. Company of Heroes is by no means a newcomer, but it has been some time since the last game in the series came out. It's all about World War II here, about moving your units forward, taking positions, and blasting the enemy away. Another RTS game, Company of Heroes, is more about tactics than base building or anything else, and as such, it's definitely an intense experience. There is no set release date just yet, but 2022 has been a suggested date, so perhaps we will see it later this year. Returning to space now, we have Falling Frontier, an RTS taking place in a procedurally generated star system where intel, logistics, and tactics are everything. Falling Frontier takes place in a sci-fi universe where space is open to those who want it the most. There is no ruling empire to be found here but the ones you create, but you're not alone in wanting power. The game looks gorgeous, and I love how interacting the star map seems to be with zoom levels and available information, and how gorgeous the skirmishes and battles are conveyed. What makes Falling Frontier so unique is the mix between RTS gameplay and 4X mechanics. Here you fight your enemies over control over resources and frontiers and colonies in a bid to become the greatest power in the galaxy, but you also search and mine for resources in order to fuel your fledgling empire. Supply is everything in Falling Frontier if you want your ships to get around, and there's deep technology and ship design system to create the best possible ships for the role you need them for. In addition, you need to actively take advantage of the scanning and recon systems to aid your war effort, perhaps finding enemy ships or new and valuable resources or colonization possibilities. In Falling Frontier, your legacy and background will determine your buffs, debuffs, and initial faction technologies which will impact your campaign as well as every single battle and minute of gameplay, and Falling Frontier is set to release later this year. Next up is Terra Invicta, another game with a particularly unique setting. In the not too distant future, an alien probe is detected approaching Earth, and an alien invasion force has reached the outskirts of the galaxy preparing for an invasion. With this in mind, the nations of Earth are unable to form a united response, but has instead formed 7 different factions with different political, military, and scientific ideals and approaches to the aliens. These factions are among others the Resistance aiming to mount a strong defense, the Servants who worship the aliens, and Humanity First seeking to exterminate the aliens and those who sympathize with them. Terra Invicta is all about the intersection between planetary gameplay and actions in space. You'll have to navigate the different factions and attempt to gain control and influence through the use of politicians, scientists, intelligence operatives, and corporations, and your actions on Earth extends into space, where resource gathering and the construction of space stations will be vital to supply your ships and mount a defense against the aliens. We again have a deep ship designer, and space combat is actually based on Newtonian physics, where momentum and maneuvers in 3D space are just as important as the firepower your ships carry. I think Terra Invicta offers a very interesting scenario, and is set to launch later in 2022. And finally, Great Houses of Calderia is promoted as a grand strategy game with deep family and character management, like a Crusader Kings meet Game of Thrones. Some key features of the game is the resource management, which will have a strategic impact on battles and social conflicts, the ability to establish trade agreements, and creating your own stories through unique events and choices. Great Houses of Calderia sounds promising, and is planned for release later this fall. Those were the games already released this year, or those we know are coming up. But no upcoming strategy games video would be complete without the mentioning of a few other games, even though hope may be slim over releases this year. Knights of Honor 2 is essentially somewhat of a dream concept for many strategy games out there. For one, it takes place during the medieval period, which is in itself an easy sell. But secondly, and perhaps more interestingly, is the fact that the game is an RTS taking place on a massive, beautiful campaign map of Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East, while at the same time combining this with real-time battles taking place on local maps depending on where the battles are fought. If you thought, is this Total War mixed with Paradox? Well, you and me both, friend. The game even includes intrigue, character management, trade systems, religion, and even politics and city management. You can appoint your own marshals, priests, spies, and merchants, and you can do it all online with friends or strangers. This concept honestly seems too good to be true, and I absolutely can't wait for Knights of Honor 2 when it releases, although it's likely to be in 2023 rather than this year. Now this next title is my personal most anticipated strategy game. This is none other than Victoria 3, the next main installment in the series from Paradox Interactive, the developer behind games like EU4, the Crusader Kings series, and Hearts of Iron. Victoria 3 is set to finally deliver an Imperial Age game which will take everything Paradox has learned since Victoria 2 came out 11 years ago, and really give the series an overhaul. Victoria 2 is known for its complexity, and Victoria 3 seems to be no different. Here you control any nation on the planet of your own choosing, but chances are you'll pick one of the stronger major powers to begin with. Victoria 3 will offer management in every aspect of the state, but with a particular focus on the management of trade and your population, which is uniquely divided into classes, cultures, and ideologies, and every single pop has a different need and want. Warfare is of course another aspect of these games, and I'm extremely excited to see what Victoria 3 will offer when it's finally ready, hopefully later this year, but likely sometime in 2023. Another massively anticipated title is Manorlords, but sadly something we'll probably have to wait another year or two for. Manorlords seems like yet another dream come true for medieval RTS fans, essentially mixing town building, construction with a full freedom of placement and rotation, the simulation of growth of real medieval towns, trade, and mixing it all with large-scale battles that aim to provide a realistic feel and flow, merging unit formations with morale systems, flanking, fatigue, and weather and equipment effects. There will even be cavalry, fortifications, the ability to place units on walls, and even gunpowder and siege engines in the final version of the game, which sounds really promising. And those were some of the biggest and most anticipated strategy games of 2022, either released, upcoming this year, or some we might have to wait a bit longer for. Let me know which games you've been looking forward to the most, and if you enjoyed the video, I really hope you leave a like, a comment, and sub to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!